Tell us about evolutionary psychology. What does this mean?
So evolutionary psychology is understanding the evolution of the human mind. So most all psychological traits have some genetic components. Some things are very strongly genetic. Something like intelligence is very strongly genetic, about 80% genetic. Something like whether you're left wing or right wing is about 60% genetic. In women, sexual orientation is only about 20% genetic, and the rest is to do with environment. And so it's understanding the evolution of the human mind. How has our mind evolved over time? The structures, the hard wiring, if you like, of the mind to be how it is. How has the human mind evolved? That's evolutionary psychology.
Very interesting. So, I mean, a little hard for me to take in a few things you said, but if I could humor you for a little more. So you said intelligence is 80% genetic, and I mean, so it's hard coded into our genes, and is it by race? And do
In
you know?
yeah, so based on you get twin studies and you get twin adoption studies, and so this allows you to understand the extent to which a trait is genetic in nature or is environmental in nature or is to do with shared environment or whatever. And in adulthood, the genetic component of intelligence is about 80%. Not in the environmental component is basically having an intellectually stimulating environment. Now, in childhood, it's not as genetic as that because when you're a child, it's your parents that are creating your environment, or it's your school teachers, and they might have higher or lower IQ than you. They might be retarding your intelligence, or they might be artificially raising it. But then when you start to leave home, when you're about 16, you start to create an environment consistent with your own innate intelligence, and then the heritability rises to about 0.8, about 80%. Interestingly, in India, it's higher. It's 90% genetic in India, but in Western countries and most other countries in the world, it's 80%.
And so for example, 90% genetic has got to do with marrying within the same caste groups, or
Precisely. So in the West, I mean, like stereotypically, you could imagine a situation where a lawyer marries his secretary, and there'll be a difference of maybe 10 IQ points between the lawyer and the secretary, and the child will be between the two. But in India, you've had this caste system for a very, very, very long time. As I understand it, even now, about 95% of people in India marry within caste, and indeed within Jat. So it's even more specific than that. Patel marries Patel, and so this means that its intelligence is canalized genetically, and so the heritability of intelligence in India is higher. It's about a genetic component of about 90%.